It's my great pleasure to introduce our next Fireside Chat. This is a conversation that will give us a perspective on where biopharmaceutical innovation stands today, and more importantly, where it's headed, through the lens of one of the world's foremost leaders in this field, Merck. Merck's legacy is formidable, from pioneering treatment for HIV and statins for cholesterol, to developing vaccines that have saved millions. Their recent advances speak to their relentless commitment to pushing the boundaries. A new pneumococcal vaccine, a vaccine for RSV in infants, an effective therapy for pulmonary arterial hypertension, and immune checkpoint inhibitors that are broadening the horizon of cancer treatment. In their pipeline, projects like enlicitide, an oral PCSK9 inhibitor, and a suite of antibody drug conjugates promise to extend Merck's leadership in oncology. We're honored to be joined here today by Dr. Eliav Barr, Senior Vice President, Head of Global Clinical Development, and Chief Medical Officer at Merck Research Laboratories. Dr. Barr oversees all late-stage clinical development of Merck's human health portfolio. Over his 30-year career at Merck, he's led global scientific and medical affairs, expanding the company's engagement in vaccines, infectious diseases, and oncology. Trained as a cardiologist, he's been recognized for his leadership in developing transformative medicines and vaccines. Moderating the discussion is Dr. Tim Anderson, Managing Director and Senior Equity Research Analyst at Bank of America, where he covers the pharmaceutical and biotechnology sectors. With more than 25 years of experience, Dr. Anderson is among the most respected voices in the field. Of note, he began his career in medicine as an MD MBA in my residency training program, by the way, and then he left us to go on to greater things that I've been trying to lure him back ever since. So he has had a long career now in research and finance, giving him a rare perspective that bridges both science and markets. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Eliav Barr and Dr. Tim Anderson.
Great. Well, thanks, Ron, for that introduction. It's great to be back in the Boston area. And thanks for joining us today. So as Ron mentioned, I'm Tim Anderson, the large cap biopharma analyst at Bank of America. And we have a very brief 25 minutes to talk with one of the senior leaders at Merck, Dr. Eliav Barr. And what a great kind of way to kick things off at a conference focused on innovation, because Merck has certainly been a leader in innovation. If you look back over the decades, how often this company has been not only first in class, but best in class. So thank you, Eliav, for joining us. I thought maybe we could start with a couple of policy questions, if you don't mind, because there's a lot in the news these days on the change that's afoot, both at FDA, in HHS, and CDC. And I think a lot of folks in my line of work are trying to figure out, is it good? Is it bad? Is it indifferent? Is it too soon to tell? So from where you sit, what changes are afoot that you would like to talk about?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of changes, obviously. FDA has had turnover at senior levels. We've had changes at HHS leadership and a lot of policy priorities that are somewhat different than previously. And of course, I think the biggest changes have been in the CDC and the ACIP framework. We will work with every administration that comes forward, and we'll do our best to ensure that the needs of the American people are met. The changes have been formidable in some ways, although with FDA, reviews continue at pace using the same framework that we've always had. And so I don't see much changes there. I think there's been a lot more discussion about drug pricing, a lot more discussion about vaccines and how vaccines might be, what the national vaccination schedule would be. We're very firm in our belief that vaccines are some of the most important innovations that have happened in public health. We strongly support a national vaccination program, Vaccines for Children, which has given access to many people around the country the ability to get childhood vaccines and prevent a lot of deadly diseases. So we hope that that will continue, but we'll be working with the government in all of the different policy issues that they're raising.
So some of the changes, even before Trump came into effect over the last couple of years, so IRA being one of them, and some of the incentives set up between small molecule and large molecule drugs have the potential to kind of reshape how R&D is done. You've got this push to bring manufacturing back to the US by the current administration. So is Merck doing anything differently? Or when you think forward over the next few years, operationally, what might change within the organization?
Well, I mean, I think the IRA I understand that there's a desire to reduce drug costs, but the IRA, I think, has really impacted negatively innovation in the sense that a drug like Keytruda, for example, which has 41 indications, I should say, would never have been able to be developed quite in the same way had the IRA been present. So, and this is particularly true with small molecules, where the window of reimbursing innovation is relatively small. So it has changed the way in which we look at our drugs and the amount of risk we have to take up front in developing particularly small molecule medicines that need to have a relatively tight window of clinical trials. In terms of bringing back manufacturing, we're in good shape. We have a lot of manufacturing here in the United States. We don't anticipate that that's going to be a meaningful issue for us. And obviously, we've prepared well in advance for that.
Vaccines have been in the news a lot. A very big business for Merck. It's essentially an oligopoly of an area with just a handful of big companies that dominate. And for you guys, it's about a $10 billion book of business. And one product in particular, Gardasil, is about half of that. This year probably sells around $5 billion. So given some of the discussion about vaccines in the public domain, are you guys seeing an impact on the vaccine business? I know it's more of a commercial question, not an R&D one. But how much time do you spend, or senior leadership spend, on this part of the business and trying to kind of address what are sometimes concerns being raised?
Well, first of all, I have to say that, just to reiterate, vaccines are some of the most important public health interventions that we've had to date. Merck is very proud of our innovations, including MMR, including Gardasil, including pneumococcal conjugate vaccine, and recently influenza or RSV vaccine. We know that this is some of the most cost-effective interventions for some of the most vulnerable individuals in our society. It's important for babies, it's important for adults as well. Certainly there's been a lot of noise around this, but the American people remain highly supportive of vaccines. And I think that is reassuring to us and something that we're going to continue to work on. Because at the end of the day, if the medicine or vaccine isn't benefiting people and isn't benefiting people in a substantive way, then we've done nothing for public health. That's why I came to Merck. And certainly profits won't follow. You need to have good medicines, good vaccines, and something like Gardasil that has shown now reductions in the rates of cervical cancer and other anogenital cancers, and as well as precancerous lesions. I don't see how that cannot be a valuable addition to the public health armamentarium.
Okay, so let's pivot to some of the disease areas and some of the areas where you guys have some exciting stuff going on. I thought we'd kick off with oncology, which is arguably the biggest vertical within Merck. And Merck currently sells the largest cancer drug in the world, which is Keytruda. This year probably sells north of $30 billion. Remarkable product. I think it's approved in 18 cancers and I think 40 some indications, which is absolutely remarkable. It is a product that goes off patent in a few years, so investors like me are often looking at Merck trying to figure out what's going to come next as a replacement. So maybe we can touch on one exciting area that's been in the news, if you follow this sort of thing a lot, which is this PD-1 VEGF bispecific space. We've had some data that came out recently at a congress called WCLC. You guys have a compound in this area that you in-licensed about a year ago. We had some clinical data that came out from a competitor program. There's been concern, sometimes the description of, is this a Keytruda killer? and I think the most recent data suggests it may not be. But maybe you can start by talking about that class of drugs,
Sure.
this most recent data that came out, and how you see that interfacing with Merck and with Keytruda.
Right. So first of all, Keytruda is a tremendous advancement in public health and really has bent the curve in mortality due to cancer. But as I sit here today, I'm really excited about the opportunity that we have at Merck for a broad, new pipeline with over 20 medicines that are going to be licensed. New medicines are going to be licensed in the next few years. Oncology is a big part of that new therapies, and we're leveraging Keytruda to improve outcomes for patients with antibody-drug conjugates, new immunotherapies, and targeted therapies. And there's a lot of exciting stuff going on. PD-1 VEGF has been a big deal in the oncology space. And one always has to have the proof in the overall survival. I have to say that as we stand here today, we don't have that proof of concept quite yet. VEGF inhibition has been an important component of cancer care in certain cancers, but has also been shown to improve progression-free survival, but not overall survival in a lot of different cancers. So the idea that PD-1 VEGF bispecifics might be a magic, sort of something new and exciting, it's possible. It'll be an incremental targeted benefit that might be good in some cancers, but certainly not with the breadth and depth of Keytruda. I don't see that as being the case given the vagaries around VEGF's role. We've got one of our own, and we're going to do a disciplined, data-driven development program. Once we see some preliminary data, and we're excited about it, Merck has the ability to activate multiple clinical trials, our SAC-TMT program for one of our ADCs, where we went from 0 to 14 clinical trials and 5 or 6 more to go within a year demonstrates that.
Last question on the PD-1 VEGF. So that came from a partnership with a Chinese company called La Nova, and it's kind of a separate line of questioning I just want to spend a minute on.
Sure.
So we're seeing a trend, of course, and lots in the press about China rising as a force in innovation, and Western companies doing more and more licensing of compounds. So how are you viewing that trend? It's definitely change afoot, and you've done one deal here. Is that something that's likely going to continue going forward?
Well, I mean, I think that there's a great deal of biotech investment in China, and the Chinese government and the Chinese ecosystem there are terrific. Our business development, and we've had some amazing business development, is global. Many American companies, some in China. We just announced a deal with a company that's based in the UK. So I think we look at opportunities where they lie. I do think that Chinese biotech is rising and bringing up a lot of really interesting medicines and vaccines. I think we should keep a close eye on that and think about it from American competitiveness and ask ourselves, what can we do to improve the American innovation ecosystem so that we can maintain our leadership, because we have a very strong competitor here with some really good scientists.
You had mentioned another compound, SAC-TMT. So it is remarkable when I look at the level of investment having gone suddenly into, I think it might be 15 phase 3. I looked on ClinicalTrials, maybe it's 14.
I can't quite figure out how many, 14 plus, let's put it this way.
It grows by the week, I think. So a very broad investment. We've got 2 products on the market. We've got the original product from Gilead. We've got a second product recently approved from AstraZeneca. So when you're looking, and there's still questions about this category that are unanswered, one of those being the role of biomarkers, which everyone in oncology is always chasing. So on that front, where are we with biomarkers in terms of kind of predicting who's going to get clinical benefit with this class of drugs? And how is Merck incorporating biomarkers into these trials that you're running?
Right. So first of all, SAC-TMT is a very important sacituzumab trumatecan, which, by the way, we licensed from a Chinese company, is a really important TROP2 ADC for Merck. We see it as a workhorse in a wide variety of cancers. Our development program is quite different than others, and we see a lot of positive signals. Biomarkers are a critical part of that story. Not every cancer, but some. In our one of the things that we have to our advantage is a huge tissue bank from the Keytruda clinical trial program. as well as a very large exploratory program in China that has enabled us to really determine how to use biomarkers with ADCs. I really want to see a world where our ADCs and our medicines are targeted for the right patient at the right time. It requires sophisticated clinical trials, but in a combination with a really good biomarker group, after all, we pioneered the PD-L1 testing system, we've been able to create interesting tests that include both traditional immunohistochemistry and now digital pathology and AI-based enhancements that we think will be very important in selecting the right patients, and equally important, excluding patients that simply won't benefit from these drugs and would get all the toxicities. So it's good news for patients. It's something that oncology needs. I hope to be able to use this kind of technology outside of oncology, because there are many places like immunology where patients just get cycled from drug to drug to drug, and it's really empiric how we treat the patients, and that's really not a satisfying way to help people get control over their disease.
And best I can tell, we'll probably get the first phase 3 readout maybe in 2027. It looks like there's a handful of trials that would read out on that time frame.
That's right, and we'll see a readout in 2027. I think I'm very confident that our development program will provide a good place for a really important enhancement, both in progression-free and overall survival. There'll be quite a bit of biomarker associated with it. We haven't been so public about it simply because we're working through the details and better show the efficacy data along with the biomarker instead of just kind of throwing out there and say, well, isn't that interesting,
Okay, let's pivot to cardiometabolic. So another area where Merck really has a lengthy legacy when you think about its innovation in different drug classes. And Dr. Wallace had mentioned oral PCSK9 is one of the compounds. So I wanted to spend a moment there. We have 3 approved products that are all injectable today. That includes Repatha, Praluent, and then most recently this every 6-month product called Leqvio. Those all require a needle. Yours is oral. And we've seen data. It looks very consistent. It looks very good. And there's a commercial opportunity to take an oral product like this into an area where there's still a lot of unmet need. So do you want to kind of talk about what you see for that program? And I guess one question I have is, LDL cholesterol has been so well studied over the course of decades, and the data really shows no matter how you lower it, you get a benefit. You guys are running a very large cardiovascular outcomes trial, and I guess one of the questions is, do you really even need to do that?
Well, so first of all, we're thrilled about enlicitide. Enlicitide is a oral PCSK9 that's essentially an antibody in a pill equivalent, and it's given after an overnight fast, and you can take it once a day. We have now 3 phase 3 programs that we've announced. The results are terrific, well tolerated. It allows us to democratize PCSK9 inhibition. This has been an area where there's very limited uptake, even as the penetration has increased, but there's really quite limited. And the reason for that is that most patients are treated by primary care physicians, healthcare practitioners who are used to giving a pill. And so if you add a pill to your LDL cholesterol lowering statin, you can now reach the kinds of targets that are necessary below 70 milligram per deciliter or below 55 milligram per deciliter for LDL cholesterol, and I think that's really great. We do need a cardiovascular outcomes trial for a couple of reasons. One, there's a regulatory element to it to be able to confirm that we see the kind of reduction in the in outcomes that one would expect with reduction with PCSK9 inhibition. But secondly, it's important to show that this oral medicine administered daily can create the kind of benefit that you can see with the commensurate reductions in LDL. We also have a pretty substantial reduction in Lp(a) here with this drug, so it's going to be interesting to see that, and we hope to be able to show that adding PCSK9 onto a statin improves cardiovascular outcomes. The field expects it, and we'll deliver it.
And these are drugs that are commonly given alongside a statin, almost always pretty much. Is this
Correct.
something that you could co-formulate with one of the statins?
We think that's a really good possibility. We're looking into it. We also have bought and licensed an Lp(a) disruptor that I think will be an interesting medicine that might be combined with that as well.
Good. Let's shift to immunology. You have an interesting program in kind of a hot category called TL1A, and there's a few companies pursuing it: Merck, Roche, Sanofi in collaboration with Teva. And it has the most promising data thus far in inflammatory bowel disease, and you guys are knee-deep in phase 3. And you've talked about this as being not only best in class, but first in class potentially. What are the attributes with this compound versus the competitors that might make this a best-in-class product?
Well, first of all, we don't have head-to-head comparisons, so one has to always look cross studies. But we think that we've been able to demonstrate a rather substantial difference in the remission rates, both in various measures, whether it's the Mayo score for ulcerative colitis or clinical remission rates. And we have data both in ulcerative colitis and Crohn. We also have data on long-term maintenance. And so all of that we just have the largest data set at present, and we think that it's a very compelling data set indeed. We note that this mechanism has both anti-inflammatory and anti-fibrotic effects, and that's going to be very important for improving outcomes, particularly in Crohn's disease, where we are ahead, and we're running through the phase 3 program. I have to say that the enthusiasm in the field for enrollment in the studies demonstrate the unmet medical need here. It's always been for me in my 30 years, the faster a trial enrolls, the more likely people are saying this might be it. And I have got something I need to do for these patients that current medicines are not doing. So I hope that we'll be able to deliver something really important to both UC and Crohn's patients.
You made a comment earlier about biomarkers when we were talking about a different product, and I think there's been some exploration here in biomarker-positive patients. It's not clear to me exactly what that biomarker is, so what can you tell us?
Well, we haven't disclosed specifically the biomarkers, but again, the field in immunology biomarkers is really, really young. It's quite unexplored, and one of the things that we've been able to do is to take our oncology team and say, hey, listen, let's take a look and do a much more systematic review of what are the potential biomarkers here, whether it's genetic markers, which is how TL1A was defined, or is it about something like inflammatory markers and so on. We'll see. Right now, the biomarkers question it's not clear whether it's going to help. And I have to say that there's going to require a lot of iteration after the phase 3 trial to actually be able to get to a place where you can predict patients. But even for the very best drugs, the JAK inhibitors and our drug, which we think will be one of the best in class, we still have 30%, 35% responses. I mean, that's not fabulous.
And timing for first phase 3 readout looks like it's probably late 2026.
Yeah, so late 26, 27 and 28 for, I think, for Crohn's. But we'll see. We're really excited about it. The data that were generated in phase 2, pretty clear. So far, the trials have run very smoothly, so no surprises.
Okay, let's pivot to yet another area where you guys have a interesting product where there's nothing approved in this particular class. So it's in ophthalmology. You have what's called a Wnt agonist.
Yes.
This came from an acquisition that Merck did a couple of years ago, iBio, and it's a trispecific antibody being studied in diabetic macular edema. And it's in 2 trials that look like they're registrational. You guys described them as phase 2/3, but they look registrational to me. So do you want to tell us about that compound as well as are there adjacent diseases, retinal diseases you can go into, such as neovascular AMD?
Sure. So first of all, we're so thrilled about the acquisition of iBio. The team there has remained intact and is world-class ophthalmologists with clinical and research folks with a huge experience. Why we're excited, MK3000, our Wnt agonist, is first in class medicine for treatment, currently being evaluated in 2 phase 3 trials for diabetic macular edema, which is obviously one of the leading causes of blindness in patients today, associated with diabetes, of course, and we have a lot of it. The class is unique in that it's not VEGF inhibition, but it's Wnt agonism. Again, it helps stabilize transudation and the blood-retina barrier. We anticipate that it would be available both for first therapy, but also for people who failed VEGF inhibitors. People do fail quite a bit VEGF inhibitors, and we hope to be able to study it as well in other, wet AMD and other retinal vein occlusion and other indications. The iBio acquisition also gave us a second compound called Tispectus that we hope also will be very important. So Merck is back in ophthalmology, hoping to treat the largest causes of blindness, and the first will be that Wnt agonist, and I think it's going to be a really great drug.
When we were looking at that timing of clinical trials, so the 2 that I mentioned, and it looks like the timing for readout for one of those actually got pulled forward, which is kind of uncommon. So it was supposed to be 2027. Now it looks like later, maybe fall of 2026. Yep. What underlay that timing change?
Fast enrollment. Again, that's a leading indicator of excitement is how fast people enroll a trial, is physicians who are saying, gosh, I want to be part of this and see what happens with our patients.
Okay, let's pivot to infectious diseases and specifically the area of HIV. So Merck has a long legacy here, came up with the first integrase inhibitor, for example, and it has lots of other therapies beyond that. So one of the kind of new compounds that would be, again, a first in class is this islatravir. And the company's given financial guidance for where HIV can get to as you look out over into the next decade. Do you want to talk about how you see islatravir slotting in to what's currently a pretty full landscape with other drug classes that are approved?
Sure. So first of all, we have a legacy. We've developed every anchor medicine class in HIV, including efavirenz, which we gave away, unfortunately. But I think that islatravir is a really great addition to our armamentarium. Remember, people are infected with HIV in their early 20s. There's an enormous amount of switching that happens, and it's for tolerability, it's for resistance, it's for a variety of reasons. And so we need new classes all the time because patients have to be really scrupulous in adherence. We also need to have medicines that can give us longer duration of coverage per dose administered. Once weekly is really important, and then even longer. Oral therapies, in our mind, demedicalize care, enable people to have a more anonymous sort of experience. They don't have to go in to get injected. So our once weekly regimens with islatravir are going to be very important. And our PrEP regimen with another one of these class of drugs, MK-8527, once monthly pill. And you might say, well, wouldn't a great Q6 month injection like recently shown with lenacapavir be important? The answer is, once monthly pill is about as low touch as you can get for a patient population that doesn't want to necessarily run into STD clinic to get injections. So I think this is going to be a really huge success and advance. We look forward to helping people living with HIV as we have since the start of the epidemic.
Eliav, thanks for your time, and thanks for coming to the WMIF today. And we're out of time. We're going to wrap it up. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.